Hello, I'm meteorologist Brad Winter from Regional Weather Live, your YouTube source for weather across the Dakotas and Minnesota. And we're still on track for that big winter storm to affect our area. And so we've got a lot to talk about, but make sure you stick around until the end. And I'm going to show you this graphic so you know who's got the best chance for snow, the best chance for severe weather, and who we're just not sure about yet. And so we're going to get right into it, folks. We're going to go ahead first into this. So we're still expecting this warm frontal boundary to pull out here on Monday and move northward throughout the day on Monday. And so we're going to have this band of snow that's going to be moving from south to north, kind of starting off in western and northern parts of South Dakota, but then quickly moving northward. Now, I mentioned the other day that there's the potential for at least just a small band and maybe some little more intense type of snow. Now, this band will be moving actually fairly quickly to the north, and the whole area itself is going to be very short. It's going to be like 50 75 miles across from one end to the other, so it's really, the whole thing's really not going to be that wide. But within that, there could be maybe just a few areas that might have just a sliver of some heavier snow. So while we're not expecting there to be much in the way of accumulations, you might run into just a quick little intense band if you're out driving out in the western and central parts of North Dakota, kind of late morning into the early parts of the afternoon. Now, as we get later into the afternoon, that area is expected to move northward and move into Canada as we get into the evening hours, and then we get just a little bit of a break. Now, as that warm front moves northward on the back side of this, we're going to be seeing some strong winds out of the south, where we're going to be looking at 40, 50, maybe even 55 miles per hour across portions of the central and western Dakotas as we get into the afternoon hours. So we're just getting started with the strong winds at this point. So we're going to kick it off on Monday already. And then, as I said, not much in the way of accumulation expected with this as we kind of put this through the day on Monday. 1 to maybe 2 inches of snow possible within this region in through here. I really wouldn't be surprised at all if we see a 2, maybe even just a thin band of a 3-inch mark somewhere kind of within this central to southwestern parts of North Dakota tomorrow. Where exactly is going to be obviously very difficult to tell. But I think there is a possibility of maybe a small area picking up near 3 inches of snow, just if there is that little heavier band that does quickly move through. But otherwise, I would think a general 1 to maybe 2 inches is probably going to be the average. All right, so we let that warm front move north. We have that snow that moves through the area, and then we wait for this big storm system out here to dig in and move through the Intermountain West and eventually eject out into the plains. And so while we're waiting for this storm system to move out of the Rockies, it's pulling up all this moisture in from the Gulf of Mexico. See how these dew points come pulling out and in through the central plains and moving northward. So it's drawing up all this moisture and this warm air out ahead of the system before it even moves out into the plains. And so even as we get into Tuesday, we could see some showers begin to develop across Minnesota, kind of begin to increase in the afternoon, Tuesday afternoon, and then even more so overnight Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning. So as early as Wednesday afternoon into Wednesday evening, we already have this warm frontal boundary that's out there. And we've got dew points in far southeastern parts of South Dakota, southwest Minnesota that are going to be reaching near 60 degrees already. And so it's possible that maybe some areas down and through here could have a strong to possibly severe storm late Wednesday into Wednesday evening. I think the better chance actually is going to be going into Thursday. But unfortunately, by Thursday, we have to switch over to our long-range model still. Our short-range model still isn't forecasting that far out yet, but our longer-range models are still showing the 60-degree dew points pushing into Minnesota. The main part of this storm at this point on Thursday begins ejecting out and into the northern plains, and so that's why I think probably more so Thursday would be our better chance for seeing some severe weather across the southern portions of our region. And so our shorter range model right now goes into Thursday morning. So we're just going to take a look at this point and see what we're looking at to start off the day on Thursday, because Thursday is really when this sucker really begins to wind up. And so what the short range model right now is showing by Thursday morning rather, is that we're going to have some rain, maybe some thunderstorms across south and eastern portions of South Dakota, across actually a good chunk of Minnesota as we start the day. And then that snow is kind of holding back into western parts of the Dakotas as we begin the day on Thursday. And then at that point, we have to switch over to more of the longer range models, and we're going to flip over back to the European, which I feel probably still has the better timing and location for the low. But as we see right away, it already has way more moisture associated with this storm at the very beginning of it on Thursday morning than that shorter range model does. But just to give kind of an idea of timing and location, I think this is probably the best one we can use at this point until I start to see differently anyway. But so we're going to start off our day on Thursday with some rain and maybe some thunder across eastern and portions of Minnesota. This is at 7 a.m. on Thursday. And then we've got some snow starting across the western parts of the Dakotas. Once we get closer to that noon hour, we begin to pull that warm air a little bit further north, and here's kind of our area where we might be seeing some strong to maybe some severe storms as we get into the afternoon hours on Thursday. And then, of course, you've got that transition zone. You've got all this moisture working up and running into this boundary of cold air. So before it moves from rain to snow, of course, you're going to have that transition of some sleet and some freezing rain in there as well. And then you've got that heavier band of snow on the backside of the storm system. And then as we get a little bit later into the day, as we get more into Thursday evening, the storm system begins to wrap up a little more. Possibly the strong to severe storms begin to move off to the east and into Wisconsin. Probably some rain and some thunder still left. But we're still going to have that transition zone in between here by the evening hours with some rain, freezing rain, and then the band of snow still on the back side of this. This is right around 6, 7 p.m. Thursday evening. As we get closer to midnight, everything begins to turn over to snow. Of course, you get more of that cold air entrenched. It's nighttime, and that system is trying to move off to the north and east. And so by this point, more of these areas have turned over to snow. In the meantime, we've got this dry air intrusion that has worked its way in. So some of these areas like Minneapolis and St. Cloud, possibly up to Brainerd, might see a break in the precipitation before the cold air kind of wraps in behind it and it begins to snow. So as we work our way into 7 o'clock Friday morning, we begin to see some snow moving across the remainder parts of Minnesota, continued snow across the eastern Dakotas, northern parts of Minnesota. And then by the noon time frame Friday, the snow begins to lighten up a little bit as the system pulls out. And then eventually by Friday evening and into Friday night, the remainder of that snow begins to move out. Now, unfortunately, big winter storm system like this, of course, yes, you're going to have the winds, right? Here you can see it circulating around here. You can just tell which direction these gusts are coming from. So everything in through here is greater than 50 miles per hour. This is midnight Thursday night going into Friday morning, and that cold air really punching into Minnesota at this point. You can see 40s and 50 mile per hour by the Friday morning. And then as we get through the day on Friday, more winds across eastern Dakotas into Minnesota. And then as we get into Friday night, Saturday morning, those winds begin to decrease. But obviously plenty of blowing, drifting snow. Hazardous travel conditions will be likely with this storm. And so, of course, I've got to throw this out there. It's early, folks, still. It is early. This storm system isn't going to be making it on to the West Coast until Tuesday night. It is sitting here Sunday night, and we're trying to forecast a storm that's going to be moving through our area Thursday and Friday. So this obviously is very preliminary, but behind me is the map I showed you at the beginning of this video, and here's what I think is going to happen at this point. So at this early stage, as I take a look at it tonight, here's kind of what I'm thinking. And so this area in the blue has got the best chance of heavy snow. Now we're talking possibly 6 to 12 inches of snow. Some areas actually through here could even pick up a little more than that. Some areas might pick up a little less. It just depends on where this low tracks. Now, if this low pressure system here moves just a little bit further down to the southeast, that pulls this area further down to the southeast with it. But as it stands right now, given where I think the current track of the low is going to be, this is probably the best chance for snowfall for the heavy snow at this moment. Now I think this area in the red down here is the best chance for severe storms. Now we're going to be talking the possibility of some hail, some large hail, some strong damaging winds, and we can't rule out the possibility of a tornado down there as well as we take a look at this. Now, some of these areas, again, there is a chance, maybe even as far north as up and through, you know, just north of the cities, including St. Cloud and including a little more of the southeastern parts of Minnesota. But as I look at it again right now, as things are occurring, I think these areas in red have the best chance for seeing some severe storms. And so this area in the yellow is our most uncertain area at this point. And I know it's a large area at this point, but the problem is we have all this warm air surging northward and running into this cold air. And at some point, there's this transition zone that's going to take place. And again, if that low pressure slides just a little bit off to the southeast, that transition zone also slides to the southeast along with it. Obviously, if it moves just a little bit back to the north and west, that takes this transition zone a little bit more to the north and west, and of course moves this area of snow back to the north and west. And we're just talking, just even a small change of 50, 75 miles could make a big difference. So at this point, I think this is the most uncertain area when we're talking about the chance of rain, how much snow they're going to get. Of course, as this low begins to move out and the cold air wraps around behind it, you know, these areas down here, down in the portions of southeast South Dakota, southwest Minnesota, we're going to be dealing with the possibility maybe of some severe storms, just depends on the timing. It's going to be dealing with some snow on the back end of this. Again, depends on the timing. So unfortunately, this area still remains the most uncertain because of the rain chances, and a little bit of a slide is going to be more freezing rain or snow. And so we just got to be able to hone in on a little bit. This is a great example of it's still just a little bit too far out there to really determine exactly in some areas. So these areas in through here, I'm kind of uncertain. And, you know, obviously as you get further to the north, your chance of snow increases, and you've got the freezing rain. And as you move south, just the chance of your rain and less snow increases as well. But that's the area that's really going to have to be worked out at this point. And now this area in green, you're not out of the woods. I mean, you're going to get some snow up in the northwestern parts of North Dakota, down here across southwestern parts of South Dakota as well. It's just a matter of how much. At this point, you're not in the track of the heaviest snow, but you're probably going to get some accumulating snow in these areas as well. So you're not completely out of the woods. If this thing shifts even more back to the north and west, obviously some of you guys are going to be getting way more snow than you're anticipating. But at this point, you're not out of the woods. You're going to be getting some snow. You're just not going to be getting the heaviest band of snow. What do you guys think? Was that a lot of information or what? And there's still there's so much more that needs to be determined at this point. I mean, we're still just so far out there, but it looks very certain that there's going to be a big system coming through our area, and there's going to be some travel issues. I'm feeling very confident about that. But it's just a matter of where exactly and how much, how widespread is it going to be. So we're looking at a very interesting week out ahead of us. And I hope by Monday evening, when I issue my next forecast, that I'll have a better idea and start to narrow down that uncertain area and get a snowfall forecast for you so that you become a little more prepared. So make sure you subscribe down below if you haven't already. Hit the bell button beside it so that you know exactly when I've uploaded the next video, because as this comes in, I'll let you know what I know and keep you informed. Not to mention, as this develops, if any severe weather comes along, as we're watching the winter weather, I'll have a live feed going so that you can keep up on it as it happens. Oh boy, here we go, folks, our first one, and we're off and rolling for the winter. So I hope to have you along this week. We'll see you a lot this week. So For Region Weather Live, I am meteorologist Brad Warner. We'll see you tomorrow.